Hello and welcome to Byju's IAS. Let's get started and look into the first article. The first article says losing the plot on women's safety. This article here is speaking about the recent bill introduced by the Maharashtra government, which happens to be the Maharashtra Shakti Criminal Law Maharashtra Amendment Bill of the year 2020. Why was this bill introduced by the Maharashtra government? That is because of the increasing cases of sexual violence against women and children in order to expedite the process of investigation and the trial so that there is reduction of the sexual violence cases against the women. In order to bring this into practice, they have introduced this bill. So the law here will bring into picture the amendment with respect to the Indian Penal Code, the Code of the Criminal Procedure, and the Protection of Children from the Sexual Offences Act. When you look into the Indian Penal Code, there are sections with respect to rape, sexual harassment, acid attack, and with respect to POXO, we also have the child sexual abuse. In all these laws, amendments and changes will be introduced when this legislation is actually going to be fulfilled. So what is that we have to understand here? There are major features when it comes to this particular bill. What are these features? Let us try and understand them. The bill proposes death penalty in cases of rape, gang rape, rape by persons in authority, aggravated sexual assault of minors, and in case of acid attacks. What do we mean by rape by persons in authority? Let's say, for example, if there is a woman who is in prison and if it happens to be a police officer who goes on to rape a woman, such person who has raped a woman while she is in prison and this person happens to be a person holding an authority, such people will be falling under the rape by persons in authority. What is something new introduced under this legislation? Basically, the death penalty is proposed for all those cases which are assumed to be heinous in nature, where there is evidence that it is perpetuated by that particular person, and also there is exemplary evidence with respect to this particular issue. In all these cases, death penalties would be given for the rape, gang rape, rape by persons in authority, aggravated sexual assault of minors, and in cases of acid attack as well. The major reform that is brought under this particular bill is that amendments have been introduced to the Criminal Procedure Code, directing for an investigation in these cases to be expedited within 15 days. Why is it important? That is because most of the cases when it comes to the women issues or when it comes to the child sexual abuses takes a long period of time. In order to make sure that all these police officers are expediting these cases, conducting the investigation on a faster process, and there is investigation happening on time, we have this particular legislation which has been brought about by the Maharashtra government. In case they are not able to identify who the culprit is, finish the investigation within the prescribed time as per this legislation, they have to write the same to the Commissioner of Police or the Special Inspector General as well. They have to write in writing as to why they were not able to investigate within a prescribed time period as given under this legislation. The draft legislation also proposes to introduce a law to deal with abuse of women on social media, where they are planning to introduce a section of Section 354E. What does this legislation basically look at? Let's say there is a person who has taken a morphed image of a woman, or he has uploaded a video of a woman without her consent. It means it is violating her privacy, it is violating her modesty, it is intimidating the women, and the women may enter into fear and problem as well. In all these cases, in case there is an accused who's done it, and if it is proved by the court of law, then such a person will also be brought under this particular bracket. So a maximum punishment of about 2 years and a fine of about 1 lakh fine will also be imposed on the accused if it is proved with respect to this particular legislation. Then if there is a woman who's actually gone on to file a false complaint and provides false information in respect of the offense committed, such women will also be penalized as well. Let's say, for example, a woman goes to the police station, she accuses another man of committing some crime, but if it is proved that the man has not committed this crime, but she had an intention to humiliate, extort, or threaten or defame his reputation, such women person will also be culpable under this particular law. In case a person is caught, they will also have to face imprisonment of up to 1 year or fine or both as well. The bill also proposes to add a heavy fine amount of up to 10 lakh. Let's say if there is a person who's committed a sexual violence, this accused will also have to pay an amount of 10 lakh. But if it is against the acid attack, in the earlier scenarios, there was no fixed fine that which was present. But in the present scenario, a 10 lakh fixed amount is prescribed in this particular legislation. In the earlier legislation, the major issue was there was a provision of fine, but what amount was not prescribed. In the present scenario, they have explicitly mentioned that it will be 10 lakh in case a sexual violence is committed against a woman or there is an acid attack on a woman as well. Another feature of this particular legislation is enhanced punishment in the existing law, where they are planning to increase the fold of the punishment from 5 years to 7 years, from 7 years to 10 years in aggravated cases of sexual violence. They will also set up institutions like One Stop Center for providing victims rehabilitation, legal aid, counseling, medical support, which has been present in the past, but they would be increasing. All these institutional setups are some of the major features when it comes to this particular legislation. But the article here has gone on to voice certain concerns with respect to this legislation. What are the major concerns? When it comes to the criminal justice delivery system in India, what do we require? We require laws. Yes, we already have laws. We have the Indian Penal Code. We also have the Criminal Procedure Code. We also have the POCSO. Next, what we require is a robust investigative mechanism, for which we already have the police officers. Then, for this to be investigated further, we also have courts as well, where it will be inquired. And finally, what we require is the adequate infrastructure. So while we already had existing laws, while we already had the setup, what was the need of coming up with this legislation? So the major problem right now is not that they have come up with a legislation, but why not utilize the same legislation but enhance on the infrastructure, recruit more number of police personnel, and at the same time the pendency of cases that are present in judiciary has to be reduced. So how do we do it? Infrastructure ideally has to be provided, but instead of developing, enhancing the already present system, they have come up with a new legislation where this was not a consultative process, where the stakeholders were not considered, and ultimately there are ambiguous areas where there are harsher punishment, more authorities, and a wider definitions according to this legislation that is based on Maharashtra Shakti Criminal Law. Maharashtra Amendment Bill 2020 says this article. Now when we look into the each of provision, let's say for example we are considering about death penalty. The death penalty speaks about heinous nature. What is this heinous nature? That has not been explained under this article. In fact, there is no uniform basis as well. All this depends on the Supreme Court or the High Court. So while when you look into such cases, it is the judiciary which decides. The legislation does not spell it out explicitly. So what was the use of coming up with this particular word of heinous or uniform legislation? And at the same time, we already have the death penalty in our Indian Penal Code as well. This is not acting as a deterrent factor. In most of the cases, evidence clearly goes on to say that death penalty is not acting as a deterrent. So why come up with a new legislation if death penalty is not acting as a deterrent? There is another angle attached to this issue. Let's say for example, there is a person who's committed a rape. This person will have a punishment of, let's say hypothetically, about 14 years of jail term. There is another person who has committed rape as well as murder. This person can be imposed with death penalty. Now what is the Maharashtra government done? For the rape, it has imposed death penalty. So a person who has committed rape will now not let go that particular victim, can also kill that particular victim as well. In an earlier scenario, he would have let go that particular victim because the punishment was only 14 years. Now since it is death penalty, he may also kill that particular victim. So the death issue for the rape is not right, says this article. The next important challenge is with respect to the Criminal Procedure Code. As we initially discussed, the investigation should be completed within 15 days. The trial has to be completed in 30 days and the appeal in 45 days. even if this particular provision wants to expedite the process, the intention on the objective of the legislature is perfectly fine, but can it be done in reality? Why? Because this might also result in improper investigation or the hasty functioning of the investigation. Why? Because the police people will now have to do it because the legislation says so. So they might catch a person who might have not even committed that particular act as well and book them under this particular provision as well. So this might also result in improper investigation, hasty functioning as well. So when we look at another similar law, while we have the Juvenile Justice Act and the POCSO Act has also fixed a timeline within which they have to complete the procedure of investigation. When you look into a similar law, the law and the evidence currently goes on to say that the police nor the court have been able to fulfill this particular obligation. Further, the bill does not state what happens if the investigation or the trial or the appeal is not completed within a prescribed time. As we initially discussed, they have to do it within a prescribed time. If they have not completed, if they have not fulfilled the obligation, what would happen to those police officers who have not completed it? Ideally, what should have happened? Instead, they should have increased the police personnel, they should have increased the police recruitment. That has not happened, but the problem right now is that there is a fixed trial period, that which is given, says the article. And apart from that, we also require the prosecutors, we also require the infrastructure in the courts. Instead of working on that, they have enhanced this particular timeline that does not serve the purpose, says this article. The third important factor or the challenge is with respect to introduction of 354E, and that is to do with social media. What this article currently says that this was not at all required. Why? Because we already have relevant sections when it comes to the Indian Penal Code and the Information Technology Act of 2000. Well, we already had the existing one. What was the need of coming up with such legislation? All that we had to do is invoke these provisions, these sections when it comes to implementation rather than filling the statute books, says this article. Finally, let's say for example, if there is a particular person who's committed an act of sexual violence against a woman, but there might be a scenario where the police were not able to get enough evidence, they are not able to substantiate in the court of law. This ultimately means it might be called as a false issue. So during this particular process, as we initially discussed, it can be called as a false complaint, and this woman can also be booked under this particular law, and she can also be imprisoned as well. Why? Because there might be a man who can use this particular provision, and he may also put this particular woman in prison because of the legislation of false complaint or false information with respect to the legislation. And currently, when we look into the statute books, we also have the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act of 2013, which also has a similar provision when it comes to the false complaint. So these are some of the limiting factors when it comes to this particular legislation. So ideally, what the government should have done is not come up with a new legislation, but instead what the government could have done is taken a pragmatic approach where it could have focused on the implementation of the existing laws and infrastructure, focus on improving the infrastructure rather than coming up with harsher and unreasonable provisions in the guise of securing women's safety. So what we have to understand is that this has become a regressive legislation, so the Maharashtra government will have to relook into it before it is passing, says this article. It is this that we have to understand with reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says stopping the slide of healthcare in India. This article draws a comparison between private and public healthcare, issues surrounding the health sector, and the health policy reforms that needs to be introduced in practice going forward. When you look into the statistics, 70% of the hospitals is under the management of private organizations and individuals. Only 30% is controlled by the government in our country. 80% of the people do not have any protection for the health. There is high out of pocket expense, which is about 62%. And when we look into the government spending, it is about 1.13% of the GDP. And what we can also witness is that there is a huge shortage of healthcare workers, particularly the nurses and midwives when it comes to India. In this particular backdrop, the article goes on to suggest that what we require is the revamp when it comes to the health sector architecture. When you look into the health sector generally, what we have is the private sector, what we have is also the government sector. The private sector caters only to the 20% of the population, or you can assume even as 15% of the population. The rich, the urban middle class, the rich of the rich, and the IT and the insurance holders will usually go to the private sector. So what we have is the corporate private healthcare, which is catering only to 20% of the population, but the rest 80% of the population would not be able to access the corporate private care health sector. And as a result, because there is a dearth, because there is a lacune, these people will have to be taken care by the government sector. So what should the government do? The government should ideally come up with what is called as the public infrastructure. What is this public infrastructure? This is nothing but public hospitals needs to be constructed by the government, and all these poor people can go up to the public sector. However, what the government has come up is called as the social insurance program or the social insurance policy in the form of Ayushman Bharat Yojana. Ideally, they should have come up with a public infrastructure where they build a public hospital, but instead they have gone by a social insurance scheme called as the Ayushman Bharat Yojana. What is this Ayushman Bharat Yojana? This is an insurance program where insurance coverage would be given up to 5 lakh for each family per year. So in case there is a family which is suffering from secondary or tertiary issues, they would be able to claim this particular insurance from a private hospital as well. So what are we understanding here? We have the insurance which is come up by the government to cater to the poor sections under the Ayushman Bharat Yojana. But there are small issues when it comes to this particular program. What are those issues? As of now, there are 12 crore card holders under Ayushman Bharat, but only 1.27 crore people have taken advantage of the scheme. Why is this persisting? That is what this article all about. It discusses certain concerns with respect to the social insurance program unveiled under the Ayushman Bharat Yojana. So basically, what is this social insurance program? Let's say for example, when there is a problem area that is persisting in the market, let's say with respect to the insurance, the government intervenes, it provides insurance to a group of individuals so that they are insured, so that they are protected against the risk of any emergencies when it comes to the health or the financial problems. That is what is called as the social insurance. So the Ayushman Bharat Yojana happens to be a social insurance taken by the government so that it can lift the poor people away from the health related poverty. But there are issues when it comes to this particular program. What are the issues? When it comes to the insurance, what exactly happens? You go to the hospital, all that you do is get your checkups, you get admitted as well, and you need not have to pay all the amount because the insurance company will pay all the expenses. So this is where there is problem, says this article. Here we have the doctor and the patient, they are not constrained by the ability to pay, and as a result there are certain tests that are conducted which might not also be required under the present scenario. And in the most of the private sectors, they work on the principle of profit. Since they work on the principle of profit, all that they want is claims from the government. In all these cases, necessity of conducting this particular test may ideally not be required, but because they have to claim from the government and they work on the principle of profit, what they do is take up this particular test so that they increase their profit levels. Patients may also be turned back when hospitals are not reimbursed for their claims as well. There are scenarios where patients are not even checked by the hospitals. Why? Because in certain scenarios the government would have not paid their claims in the earlier scenarios. There are others who also may charge extra off the book as well. Let's say for example, if there is a particular operation which is conducted, let's say if that particular operation costs about 5 lakhs, 5 lakhs is the limit which is given by the government, but this particular hospital, because it has a monopoly in that particular district, might charge 6 lakhs in that particular case. So the extra 1 lakh will also have to be provided by this particular family which has entered that district hospital as well. Then when it comes to the agents of the government, who are they? It is the administrative personnel who are present in respect to the government. What they want is less claims. Why? Because they are working for the government. But what do the hospitals want? The hospitals want more as well. So in this particular scenario, there is conflict between the government as well as the private, and ultimately services might again not be provided to the poor sections as well. But in most of the cases, ceiling levels of the insurance also gets claimed by the private hospitals when it comes to the government claims with respect to the poor section of the society. And as a result, this whole health insurance program is not working effectively. These private hospitals are making maximum profits, but that is not resulting in the expected outcome, says this article. When you look into the United States of America, we have what is called as the Obamacare. When it comes to the Obamacare in United States of America, we have professionals who have expertise in the health sector. They go and have a vigilance eye and also check and also inspect as well. In case there have been violations with respect to the private hospitals, they will also be penalized, but that is not being reported in India. So what is the major issue? The issue is with respect to the insurance, and as a result, what will happen going forward? There will be upward bias in the insurance premium. So the poor, if there is need, will have to pay more premium, or the government may have to pay more premium. This will also mean that if there is a rich person and the poor person who has to pay the premium, because the rich will be able to pay more premium, there is crowding out of the poor. And ultimately, instead of focusing on the health infrastructure, this insurance program has not done good, neglecting the public hospitals, says this article. The article further brings on this particular proposition of 80 is to 20 rule. What is this 80 is to 20 rule? This can be further broken down into 40 and 40. Let's say, for example, this 20 rule is basically about the rich people. So irrespective of which hospital, they would be able to go to that hospital, get all the best services from the best doctors when it comes to the urban area. But there is this 80 rule which has to be looked into. So this 40 are the poor people. Irrespective of what happens, they will never and they can never enter the private hospitals. Then there are these 40% of the people who might belong to the middle class or the lower middle class families. So these people might be able to afford a private hospital as well. But once they enter the private fold, there is huge amount of money that will be on these people, that such a scenario might also be that out of hand expenses increases and they may also fall in the bracket of poverty as well. In order to overcome all these issues, what do? They head to a particular doctor who might not charge well, but this particular person might also be a quack, or he might provide the patients with more amount of antibiotics as well. And if this particular antibiotics are provided to the patients, this can also result in bomb being exploded in the form of antibiotics problem. So as a result, what this article currently goes on to suggest is it has given us three important options. What are these options? Instead of the insurance scheme, ideally we have to develop the infrastructure. We have to make sure that most of these programs are government owned, government run, and it has to be taken care by the government. How do we do it? That is by ramping up the number of doctors in the rural sector. So first, make sure that you are including the infrastructure, pumping up the infrastructure, and after you do that, what you require is the doctors. So make sure that there is number of doctors increased in the rural sector. The second major recommendation is to increase or revive the licensee medical practitioner. What do we understand by this? Let's say, for example, normally when it comes to the medical students, when they are doing with their MBBS, they have to study for 5.5 years. But when it comes to the licensee medical practitioners, they have to study for about 3 years, and after that they would be awarded with the diploma, and the next 2 years they would be working in the rural sector. This means they are working as the licensee medical practitioner. This process was present before the independence. If it is revived, all these licensee medical practitioners can still work in the rural sector where they would be able to treat about 80% of the people, and ultimately we would be able to provide health justice to these people, says the recommendation. The third recommendation is to empower the graduates of the BSc nursing. In most of the healthcare sectors, the doctors may be absent. Who take care of the primary healthcare sectors? It is the nurses. So this particular suggestion also says that nurses will also have to be empowered in all those understaffed primary healthcare centers. There is also a neglect with respect to the doctors in the rural areas. So we have to increase the budget allocation when it comes to accommodating more salaries to the doctors so that they are pushed towards the rural sector. As of now, when you look into the rural sectors, most of the private doctors would not want to go and work in the rural sector. One is because of absence of facilities, and two is because of salary. So once we increase the allocation in the budget, the facilities can be increased, and at the same time the extra salary can also be provided to the doctors, and preference for the doctors for the postgraduate seat preference can also be given. So a quota, if they are fulfilling this, can also be given to the doctors for the postgraduate program as well. When you look into the statistics, we currently have 0.6 nurses per doctor, but ideally the World Health Organization says it has to be 3 nurses per doctor. So what should we do? We should also increase the salaries for the nurses so that there are more nurses when it comes to the rural sector. So this is what we have to understand in reference to this article. So instead of the insurance program, what we require is the public infrastructure program and enhancement of the infrastructure by coming up with these types of policies is what this article is all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article says smoldering unrest. Temporary workers who were employed at Western's Narsapura facility near Bengaluru started raising slogans, vandalized the vehicles parked inside the factory premises of Wistron. These workers were protesting. Why? Because one, they were not paid salaries on time, and then even if they have worked overtime, salaries were not awarded on time. And as a result, what we saw was vandalism in Wistron, which happens to be a Taiwanese based company. In this particular backdrop, let us try and understand everything about this particular issue and what could be the concerns with respect to this issue in reference to investment as well as labor issue, and what needs to be done way forward with respect to the labor laws. When we look into Wistron, this happens to be a Taiwanese company and it is a contract manufacturer of Apple, which means the assembly of the mobiles will be done by these contract manufacturers of the Apple. The factory is a new unit from where it had started assembly of the iPhone Special Edition 2020. Now there are about 4 models that are being produced, including iPhone 11 in this Westron company in Narsapur near Bengaluru. The flagship iPhones that which are produced at Narsapur are also exported to number of countries world over. In fact, when you look into the Karnataka government, they had also given about 43 acres at Narsapura industrial area from the state government. That is because this particular company proposed that it will invest about 2,900 crores and also provide employment to about 10,000 people in this particular area. And as a result, the state government of Karnataka had also given some concessions. The number of employees working in Wistron, which happens to be a Taiwanese company, is about 2,000 regular employees and some around 7,000 who were working as a contractual employees. What exactly happened at Wistron's Narsapura facility? Basically, thousands of people assembled, vandalized the campus, broke down the window panes, ATM machines, CCTV cameras, vehicles and other equipments that were present in this particular premises were all broken down because the salaries were detected and there was untimely payment of wages. There were allegations of looting of thousands of iPhones, laptops, television sets from this particular premises. And after all this has happened, Apple has placed all the fresh production orders on hold for its Taiwanese supplier Wistron. Why? Because when Apple investigated this particular issue, it found certain lapses and it said yes, all these employees were not found to have been given salaries on time and at the same time all these employees also face difficulties because of overburden that which was infused by Wistron as a company. As a result, Apple has suspended this particular contract temporarily and has said that future contracts will be enabled only when they are able to prove their efficacy. In this particular scenario, we have to understand whether Apple has different types of reactions when it comes to China as well as when it comes to India. When it comes to China, there are contract companies like Pegatron, Foxconn, and Wistron, which have huge factories that are set up in China. But there again, assembling of the iPhones take place, iPad, iWatches, and a range of other Apple products that take place in all these manufacturing entities. But what happens in China? There are allegations of serious labor law violations against the Apple suppliers and vendors as well. In fact, you also have a non-governmental organization called as the China Labor Watch. According to this particular organization, most of these vendors violate the labor laws. They do not respect the labor laws, and the working conditions when it comes to China has also been pathetic, says this NGO. In fact, most of these employees when it comes to China work 6 days a week and they are not paid properly according to this non-governmental organization. But when it comes to India, that is not the same. Why? Because China is an authoritative country where labor laws might not be represented, because you have the Communist Party of China which has a complete control when it comes to its laws as well as its functioning. When it comes to India, we have democracy, and ultimately Apple has to comply by all the labor laws that are present in India. With this particular incident that has happened with respect to Wistron, what we have is major issues with respect to the investment. What would happen right now? Since the people came out, they also vandalized the place. There was also a loss reporting to about more than 50 crores. This might haunt the investments in the near future. Why? Because as of now, since the company's properties are destroyed, there were mobile phones that were stolen and the company suffered a huge loss. The global community, which is planning to come up to India as an alternative to China, might resist in the near future. Why? Because they are not sure if their investments would ultimately end up in profit, or there can be vandalism in the near future as well. So the first major concern is that India was positioned as a global manufacturing hub as an alternative to China, and now with this particular issue surfacing, the global community, the organizations and countries may resist to have their investments in India. This is one part of the story. The other side of the story is about diluting the protection afforded to the labor. The government had recently brought n number of labor reforms, so these labor reforms also point out that there might be dilution of the labor laws, and ultimately they are in favor of the management and not in favor of the labor. Ideally, all these issues could have been resisted. How? Let's say, for example, there were issues and concerns and grievances that were already voiced when it comes to the Wistron issue. Had this grievance administration taken this into prominence and addressed all their grievances before, this particular issue would not have occurred when it comes to Wistron. So, what should happen in the near future? Enforcement of all the labor laws with respect to the employee and the employer should take place before such issues actually happen. So what should the government do? The government should actually bring about a tripartite dialogue where the government is into picture, then you also have the trade unions and you also have the employers, where they have to sort out all the issues amidst themselves instead of giving rise to such issues which has resulted in the Wistron issue. And apart from this, with global firms under pressure to exhibit higher standards when it comes to environmental, social and corporate governance, India also needs to make sure that it is enforcing all the compliance laws of the land. Treating the labor employer disputes in an even handed manner is what we have to understand with reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says India to bring more nations into the coastal radar network. India has a 7,520 kilometer coastline of the Bay of Bengal and in the Arabian Sea. India is now planning to expand the coastal radar chain network. Why is this very important? That is because in order to make sure that the emanating threat from the oceans are completely nullified, and in order to bring the capacity so that it can take care of the Indian Ocean littoral states. When it comes to countries in consideration, we have Mauritius, Seychelles, Sri Lanka, who have already been integrated into the country's coastal radar chain network. Similar plans are in pipeline with Maldives and Myanmar, and discussions are ongoing with Bangladesh and Thailand as well. So, what is that we have to understand here? This article currently speaks about white shipping agreements that India has nearly with 36 countries and 3 multilateral contracts. So, what is this particular white shipping? Basically, when it comes to ships, they are classified into three types. One is what is called as white, the other is what is called as grey, the third is what is called as black ships. So, what are these white ships? These are basically the commercial ships. So, when there is a commercial ship that is going through the Indian waters or close by to the Indian waters, exchange of information from one country into another is what is called as commercial ship, which is also called as white shipping. Then there is something called as the grey shipping. These are something to do with the military vessels. And finally, there is something called as the black shipping. So what is it? These are the ones which are conducting the illegal activities when it comes to the shipping. So all these countries in the near future will be sharing such information in the near future with India because of preventing any potential threat from the sea which impinges on the coastal and the offshore security of India. And at the same time, India is also entering into agreements with other nations to make sure that its interest in the Indian Ocean and much beyond is safeguarded when it comes to the free access in the Indian Ocean. And how will it be implemented? Under the phase 1 of the coastal radar chain network, 46 coastal radar stations have been set up across the country's coastline, and phase 2 of the project, which is currently underway, 38 station radar stations and 4 mobile radar stations can be set up under the Coast Guard and is in advanced stage of completion. Now let's look into the next article. This article, laying the foundation for faster growth, has been explained on the very same platform with respect to the contraction of the economy and what needs to be done in order to boost the economy during the COVID-19 crisis. This has been explained number of times, but in order to give you a quick recapture, you can refer our economy this week that will be followed next week. Now let's look into some of the preliminary practice questions. With reference to Guru Tej Bahadur, which of the following statements is or correct? He was the sixth of 10 gurus of the Sikh religion. Gurudwara Siskand Sahib in Chandni Chowk marks the place of his execution. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is 2 only. Why? Because he is not the sixth guru, but instead he happens to be the ninth guru when it comes to the Sikh religion. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference given under this article. So kindly remember, he was the ninth of the 10th gurus of the Sikh religion. He traveled far and wide, visiting many places in northern India, Assam, preaching the word of Guru Nanak. It was he who started the community water wells as well as the langars. He also founded the city of Anandpur Sahib in Punjab. He was also executed or beheaded by King Aurangzeb because he believed in free practice of religion without any force. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which river was called the sorrow of Odisha for causing massive floods? The answer to this is Mahanadi. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference given under this article. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following statements. The lower house can be dissolved earlier by the president on the advice of the prime minister. It can also be dissolved if the president feels that no viable government can be formed after the resignation or fall of a regime. Which of the above statements are correct? The answer to this is both. Why have we taken this practice question? Because of the reference given under this article. Now let's look into the next practice question. The crop is subtropical in nature. A hard frost is injurious to it. It requires at least 210 frost-free days and 50 to 100 centimeters of rainfall for its growth. A well-drained soil capable of retaining moisture is ideally suited for the cultivation of the crop. Which one of the following is the crop? The answer to this is cotton. Now let's look into the mains practice question. Despite the expansion of laws that protect women in India, violence against women continues unabated. Do you agree? Substantiate. Next question. Government health insurance scheme may have eased costs of the poor, but they are far from perfect. Discuss the key challenges and suggest measures to revamp the health sector. So please write all your answers on the comment section, peer review, and also come up with constructive criticism. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.